How did I end up staring at the two people I trusted most in the world, realizing they'd been plotting my destruction for years? This story has more twists than you'd believe. And before we dive in, hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing how far this story reaches. Are you listening while commuting? Working out? Let me know. My name is Bella Thompson, and 3 years ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I was 27, a coder and programmer by trade, and I just created something I believed could change everything. A software system for order and warehouse management that could cut checks, issue invoices using AI, and alert management when inventory ran low. It was sleek, efficient, and unlike anything else on the market. But let me back up a bit. Before any of this happened, I'd been with Matt Miller for about a year. We were living together, and he was 32, a marketing analyst with the kind of confidence that made you believe he could sell anything to anyone. When I told him about my software idea one evening over dinner, his eyes lit up. "This could be huge, Bella," he'd said, leaning forward excitedly. "You need to do this. Quit your IT job and focus on building this full-time." I'd hesitated. "I don't know. We need my income." "I'll support us," he'd interrupted. "I make enough. You focus on coding, and when this is ready, we'll have something incredible." So that's what I did. I quit my job and spent the next 7 months coding from home. 16-hour days, surviving on coffee and determination, living in sweatpants, my eyes glued to my laptop screen. Matt worked his regular job and paid our bills, and I poured everything I had into building that software. By month 7, it was complete. I remember the day I ran the final tests and everything worked perfectly. I called Matt at work, practically screaming with excitement. He came home early, brought champagne, and we celebrated. He immediately called Haley Brooks, my best friend from college, to share the news. Haley was 28, charismatic and sharp, with a natural talent for sales. When Matt suggested bringing her on board to help us find clients, it seemed perfect. The three of us, Matt handling marketing strategy, Haley working sales, and me managing the technical side. The last 5 months of that first year were a whirlwind. We set up the business structure, filed all the paperwork, and Matt and Haley started pitching to potential clients. They were always together, meeting with prospects, attending networking events, doing sales presentations. They made a good team, I thought at the time. We even landed our first few clients before the year ended. But during those months, I started noticing things. Matt came home late. A lot. Always with explanations about client dinners, networking drinks, late meetings with prospects. And sometimes when he'd kiss me hello, I'd catch the scent of perfume. Not mine. Something floral and expensive. The same scent, over and over. I'd met Haley for lunch once during this time, and I'd smelled that same perfume on her. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was stressed from the intensity of building the software and launching a company. That Matt and Haley were just working hard to get our business off the ground, that I was imagining problems where there weren't any, but the doubt wouldn't go away. One night, after Matt fell asleep, I got out of bed and went back to my laptop. I opened the source code for the software I'd built, the software that was supposed to be our future, and I made changes. I added extra layers of security, encryption that went deeper than anyone would expect, access levels that only I could control. The IT team we'd eventually hire could handle routine maintenance, troubleshoot surface issues, manage servers, but without my encryption keys, they'd never be able to access the core system where all the critical code, client data, and proprietary algorithms lived. I told myself I was just being thorough, protecting our intellectual property, standard security measures for valuable software. But late at night, my mind would spiral with questions I didn't want to ask out loud. What if Matt and Haley were more than business partners? What if they wanted to push me out? What if I built something incredible only to have it stolen from me? No, I'd tell myself, that's crazy. They wouldn't. They couldn't. But the voice in my head would whisper back, but what if they did? So I built in my protection, my insurance, my security. If something went wrong, if I was forced out somehow, the company would eventually need me. The system would require updates that only I could provide. Without me, it would slowly degrade until it failed. I didn't want to believe I'd ever need that protection. but I made absolutely sure it was there. The second year was when everything really took off. We landed more clients during those first few months, enough to prove the business model worked. Then we took out business loans to fund our expansion. With that money, we leased a proper office space, our headquarters. We furnished it, set up servers, created a real professional environment, and we hired our first IT team. Damien was our IT manager, sharp, dedicated, someone who really understood systems architecture. Anna and Clarence were our senior engineers, both talented and hardworking. They were good people, and I enjoyed working with them. The business grew faster than any of us had expected. More clients signed on. Revenue increased. The software worked beautifully, and word spread in the industry about this innovative new system that could streamline operations and save companies serious money. By the end of that second year, we'd already paid off our business loans. We were profitable, growing, successful. But Matt and Haley were still always together. Working late became their constant refrain. Marketing strategy sessions, they'd say. Client presentations. Networking events. "You should head home, Bella," Matt would tell me around 6 or 7 in the evening. "Get some rest. We've got this marketing powwow to finish up." And I'd go home to our apartment alone, while my boyfriend and my best friend stayed at the office together. Sometimes until 10 or 11 at night. I was too busy managing my own team to think too much about it. We had technical challenges to solve, systems to maintain, new features to develop. I told myself their constant togetherness was just part of building a business. The perfume smell continued, Matt's late nights continued, and that nagging suspicion in my gut continued, but I pushed it down and focused on work. By the third year, our company had become something truly special. We'd grown our client base significantly. Major companies were using our software. Revenue was climbing month after month. And then at the end of year 3, we hit a milestone that felt almost surreal. $20 million in profit. $20 million. Matt decided we needed to celebrate properly. He organized a company party at a hotel ballroom, something big and impressive. We'd invite everyone, our clients, potential investors, employees, everyone who'd been part of our journey. "This is our moment, Bella," he'd said, squeezing my hand. "Everything we've worked for." The party was scheduled for Saturday evening. We decided to check into the hotel the day before, Friday afternoon, to get settled and prepare everything. We arrived at the hotel around 3 o'clock on Friday, right when check-in opened. Matt and I were given one room, and Haley had her own room down the hall. We spent the rest of Friday evening relaxing, going over the presentation one more time, making sure everything was perfect for the big celebration the next night. Saturday morning, I woke up early, my mind already racing through the day's schedule. Matt was going to do the main presentation. He was better at public speaking, and as CEO, it made sense for him to be the face of the company. But halfway through getting ready, I realized I'd left the thumb drive with all the presentation files back at the office. "I'll be right back," I told Matt, grabbing my car keys. 20 minutes, tops. I drove across town, let myself into our empty office, grabbed the thumb drive from my desk, and headed back to the hotel. When I got to our room and used my keycard, I heard voices immediately. I pushed the door open carefully. I knew I'd closed that door completely when I left. I always did. But now it stood slightly ajar, and voices were drifting in from the balcony. Laughter. Haley's voice, unmistakable. My heart started pounding as I stepped quietly inside. Through the sliding glass door to the balcony, I could see them. Matt and Haley, standing close together, his arm wrapped around her waist. They were looking out at the city view, comfortable with each other in a way that made my stomach drop. And then I heard what they were saying. "Once we get her out, we'll have full control," Matt was saying, his voice casual like he was discussing the weather. "I'll accuse her of selling intellectual property to a competitor. Make it look like corporate espionage. She'll be so terrified of getting sued that she'll take whatever severance we offer and disappear." Haley laughed. Actually laughed. "God, I'm so tired of pretending to be her best friend. 3 years of this, Matt. 3 years of sneaking around, playing these roles." 3 years, Matt agreed, pulling her closer. "But it'll be worth it. Once she's gone, we can finally be together openly, get married, run this company the way it should be run, without her dragging us down." She built the tech, Haley said, but honestly, she's dead weight now. We have an IT team. We don't need her anymore. Exactly, Matt said. She served her purpose. Now it's time for us to take what we've built and actually do something with it. I stood there in that doorway, clutching the thumb drive so hard, my hand hurt. 3 years. They'd been together for 3 years. From almost the very beginning when they'd started looking for clients together. While I'd been building the software that made all of this possible, while I'd been managing our technical team and solving complex problems, they'd been betraying me. Every late night Matt claimed was a client meeting. Every time Haley sat across from me at lunch and listened to me talk about the business, about my relationship, about my future with Matt, every "I love you" Matt had said to me while he was sleeping with my best friend. It was all a lie. All of it. And they'd been planning this, planning to steal my company, planning to destroy my reputation with fake accusations, planning to throw me away like garbage once they didn't need me anymore. I don't know how long I stood there. It felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then something inside me clicked into place. The shock was still there. The pain was crushing. But underneath it, something else rose up. Something cold and clear and absolutely certain. I walked out onto that balcony. Matt and Haley spun around. For just a moment, I saw pure panic flash across both their faces before they tried to compose themselves. 3 years? I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Haley stepped away from Matt, but she didn't look sorry. She looked annoyed at being caught. Bella, this isn't what... 3 years you've been together? I continued. 3 years you've been planning to steal my company? Matt didn't even try to deny it. His face hardened, shifted into something cold and businesslike. You heard. Every word, I said. There was a heavy silence. Then Matt's expression changed into something calculated, strategic. Then let's not waste time, he said. We already have the paperwork prepared. You're going to resign, sign over your shares, and walk away quietly. We have evidence that you've been selling proprietary code to competitors. Corporate espionage. If you try to fight us, we'll bury you in legal fees and destroy any chance you have of ever working in tech again. Haley's voice was almost gentle, which somehow made everything worse. Bella, just sign the papers. Take the severance we're offering. Start over somewhere else. It's easier for everyone this way. I looked at them, these two people I'd trusted with absolutely everything, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The shock was still there. The pain was overwhelming, but underneath it all, something else was rising. Clarity. Focus. Determination. I'm not signing anything, I said, and my voice was growing stronger with each word, without reading it first. And I want my own lawyer to review whatever documents you're trying to force me to sign. Matt's jaw tightened. Bella, don't make this harder than... I'll sign the document, I interrupted. I'll leave quietly, but I have conditions that need to be added. I want a no-contact clause. If either of you contacts me for any reason after I leave, there's a penalty. $1 million. I want legal protection. Your accusations against me disappear completely and permanently the moment I sign. And if you somehow need technical support from me in the future, that's another $1 million fee. Matt actually laughed. We won't need you for anything, Bella. We have an entire IT team. Damien and his people can handle whatever comes up. Then you have nothing to worry about, I said coolly. Add my conditions to your paperwork. Have your lawyer write up the amendments. I'll have my lawyer review everything. I want 2 weeks to pack my things and find a new place to live. You can stay with Haley during that time. Clearly, that's where you'd prefer to be anyway. They exchanged glances. I could see them calculating, weighing their options, deciding whether my conditions were acceptable if it meant getting rid of me quickly. Finally, Matt nodded. Fine. We'll contact our lawyer this afternoon and have him add your conditions to the agreement. But you sign by the end of next week, no more delays. I'll go to the office on Monday, I said. Get my personal belongings and say goodbye to my team. I expect the updated document with all the amendments ready for my lawyer to review by Monday afternoon. You'll have it, Matt said tersely. I turned and walked toward the door. As I stepped into the hallway and the door clicked shut behind me, I heard them start to laugh. Their voices were muffled but clear enough. She actually thinks we'll need her. Matt's voice carried through. The system will be fine. We'll never have to call her or pay her that ridiculous $1 million. She's delusional. $1 million for a phone call. Haley's laughter joined his. God, she has no idea how business actually works. I paused there in the hallway for just a moment, my hand still on the door handle, and shook my head slowly. Fools, I whispered to myself. You have no idea what's coming. See you soon. Then I walked away down that hotel corridor, my back straight, my head high. I made it to my car in the parking garage before the tears finally came. I sat there behind the wheel and just broke down completely, sobbing so hard I could barely breathe. The man I'd been with for 4 years total, 1 year before the company, 3 years building it together, had been lying to me for most of that time. My best friend had been betraying me for 3 years. Everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for, had been built on lies. But even as I cried, even as the grief threatened to swallow me whole, another part of my brain was working. Those extra layers of security I'd added to the code when my instincts told me something was wrong. Those encryption keys that only I possessed. That system that would eventually need updates only I could provide. They thought they were so smart. They thought they'd planned everything perfectly. They had no idea what I'd built into that software, no idea at all. When I finally stopped crying, my eyes were swollen and my face was blotchy, but my mind was clear. I pulled out my phone and made a call. Hi, is this Ricky Grant? I asked when a calm, professional voice answered. I need a lawyer. Can I set up an appointment for Monday afternoon? Absolutely, he replied. What's this regarding? A contract I'm being forced to sign, I said. And I need to make sure I don't get destroyed in the process. I'll see you Monday. 2 o'clock? I'll be there, I said and ended the call. That phone call, I realize now, was the moment everything began to change. Monday morning arrived too quickly. I drove to the office with my stomach in knots, not entirely sure what to expect, but knowing I needed to do this. Matt and Haley were already there when I walked in. I could see them through the glass walls of the conference room, documents spread across the table. They looked smug, confident, like people who'd already won. But before I dealt with them, I had something more important to do. I walked slowly through the office, stopping at certain desks, the people who'd worked with me, who'd helped build and maintain the systems I'd created. Damien looked up when I approached his desk. He'd been our IT manager from almost the beginning, one of the first technical hires we'd made. Smart, capable, someone who genuinely cared about doing good work. Thank you for everything, Damien, I told him quietly. You're brilliant at what you do. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. He looked confused, concerned. Bella? What's going on? Are you okay? I'm leaving the company, I said, keeping my voice steady. But you're going to be okay. I promise you that. I moved to Anna's desk next, then Clarence's. Brief goodbyes, professional but warm. They all looked worried, confused, like they sensed something was very wrong but didn't know what. I didn't have time to explain. Not yet. But I made sure they knew I valued them, that their work mattered. After I'd said my goodbyes, I collected my personal items from my desk. A few framed photos, my favorite coffee mug with a coding joke on it, some books I'd brought from home. I carried everything out to my car, then returned to face Matt and Haley in that conference room. Matt pushed a thick stack of papers across the table toward me the moment I sat down. Sign, he said simply, like he was ordering coffee. I picked up the document and started flipping through it slowly, scanning each page, and there they were, all the amendments I'd demanded. The no contact clause with the $1 million penalty, the technical support fee clause, the legal protection stating their accusations would be dissolved upon signing. Their lawyer had added everything over the weekend, written it all out in proper legal language. Not yet, I replied calmly, setting the papers down. My lawyer is reviewing this today. I'll have my response by end of day tomorrow. Haley leaned back in her chair with an expression of exaggerated patience. Bella, you're just making this harder on yourself. We're trying to make this easy for you. Everything you asked for is right there. Maybe, I said, but I'm not signing anything until my lawyer confirms that everything is exactly as it should be. Matt's expression darkened. We had our lawyer work on this all weekend, and I appreciate that, I interrupted, my voice firm. But I'm still having my lawyer review it. I'll be back Tuesday afternoon with my answer. After a long pause, Matt spoke through gritted teeth. Fine, but you sign Tuesday. No more delays after that. If everything checks out, I'll sign Tuesday, I agreed, standing up and taking the document with me. Have Liza from accounting available to notarize it. I walked out of that office building with my head held high, the contract tucked securely in my bag. At 2:00 that Monday afternoon, I sat in a law office across from Ricky Grant. He was younger than I'd expected, late 30s, maybe, with an intensity that made you immediately pay attention. Sharp features, intelligent eyes, the kind of presence that filled a room, even though he wasn't particularly loud or flashy. I'd learned later that he was a former Marine who'd gone to law school on the GI Bill. The kind of person who could dismantle you legally or physically, depending on what the situation required. He spent nearly an hour reading through the contract Matt and Haley had given me. I watched his expression grow darker and more serious with each page he turned. Finally, he looked up. This is a hostile termination dressed up as a voluntary resignation. They're forcing you out using fabricated accusations of corporate espionage, offering you minimal severance, $100,000. If you tried to fight these accusations in court, it would cost you a fortune in legal fees, probably more than you have in savings. They're banking on you being too scared or too financially limited to fight back. He paused, then continued. But these amendments you demanded? These are actually quite good. The no-contact clause with the $1 million penalty works in your favor. The technical support fee protects you if they need you in the future. The legal protection clause ensures their accusations disappear permanently. Did you come up with these yourself? Yes, I admitted. I was hoping you could tell me if they're actually enforceable. They are, Ricky said. Their lawyer drafted these properly, whether he realized the implications or not. These clauses protect you significantly. He leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. Then he started flipping through the pages again, more slowly this time, his brow furrowing. Wait, he said, looking up at me with something like amazement. This contract is missing something critical. There's no non-compete clause, no non-solicitation provision, no intellectual property restrictions beyond the specific software you've already built. What does that mean? I asked. It means, Ricky said slowly, that their lawyer made a catastrophic error, or they were so eager to get rid of you that they didn't think it through. You're free to start another company. You're free to build competing software. You're free to approach their clients once their contracts expire. You're free to do basically anything except directly steal their existing code or actively interfere with their current contracts. I stared at him. That's legal? Completely legal, he confirmed. A properly drafted separation agreement in your industry should absolutely have included those restrictions. The fact that it doesn't means you have enormous freedom to compete with them if you choose to. They just gave you a severance package and let you walk away with no strings attached beyond the clauses you demanded. He shook his head, still looking at the contract like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. You know something they don't you? I nodded slowly. The system I built needs regular updates to function properly at optimal levels. Major updates every 4 years, or it starts to degrade. Performance slows down, errors increase, security vulnerabilities develop. It's not immediately catastrophic, but over time it becomes serious. Matt and Haley don't know that because they never bothered to understand the technical architecture. Their IT team can handle day-to-day maintenance and minor troubleshooting, but they can't access the core system to implement the critical updates. Only I can do that, because only I have the encryption keys. Understanding dawned on Ricky's face, and he started to smile. Then he actually laughed, a genuine delighted sound. You knew from the beginning. When you demanded these penalty clauses, you knew they'd eventually need you. And they just agreed to it. They walked right into it. And their lawyer was so incompetent that he didn't even include basic protections that would have prevented you from competing with them. I built protection for myself when my instincts told me something was wrong, I said. They're the ones who turned it into a trap by underestimating me and throwing me away. Ricky shook his head, still grinning. You're either the smartest person I've ever met or the most patient, probably both. So I should sign it? I asked. Absolutely, he said firmly. This contract is a gift. They're essentially paying you to leave and giving you complete freedom to do whatever you want afterward. But I want to draft a comprehensive technical support agreement for you, with specific terms for system updates, maintenance schedules, implementation procedures, pricing tiers. We'll have it ready for when they eventually call you, because they will call you. We spent the next hour drafting the technical support agreement, detailed pricing structures, implementation timelines, terms for ongoing maintenance. When we were done, he filed it away carefully in a folder with my name on it. For when they call, he said. For when they call, I agreed. Tuesday afternoon, I returned to the office. Matt and Haley were waiting for me in the conference room, along with Liza from accounting, who'd brought her notary stamp and seal. I sat down and read through the document one final time, slowly, carefully. Everything Ricky and I had reviewed was there, exactly as it should be. The no-contact clause, the technical support fee, the legal protection, $100,000 in severance. And just as Ricky had pointed out, no non-compete clause, no non-solicitation provision, no restrictions on what I could do after I left. Everything is in order, I said finally. Let's sign. Matt and Haley signed first, then I signed. Liza notarized each signature with her official stamp, added her seal, and signed as witness. While we waited, Matt initiated the wire transfer from his phone. A few minutes later, my phone chimed with a notification. $100,000 had been deposited into my account. I took my notarized copy, folded it carefully, and tucked it into my bag. 2 weeks, I said, standing up. I'll be out of the apartment in 2 weeks. Fine, Matt said curtly. I walked out of that conference room, down the hallway, and out of the building. As I reached the parking lot, I heard voices behind me, coming from an open window on the second floor. Matt and Haley's voices, not quite shouting but loud enough to carry. I can't believe we're actually rid of her, Haley was saying. Best money we ever spent, Matt replied. $100,000 to get complete control of a $20 million company? That's nothing. Their laughter drifted down. I paused next to my car, looked up at that window, and smiled. See you in a year, I whispered to myself. Then I got in my car and drove away. The next 2 weeks were a blur of packing, apartment hunting, and planning. I found a small one-bedroom place I could afford, modest, nothing like the apartment I'd shared with Matt, but it was mine. I moved out on a Saturday when I knew Matt would be at Haley's place. I didn't leave a note. I didn't leave anything except my key on the kitchen counter. And then I started building. 365 days after I signed those papers and walked out of that office, my phone rang. I was sitting in my small apartment, much more modest than the place I'd shared with Matt, working on my laptop. When I saw the caller ID, I smiled. Matt Miller. I'd been waiting for this call. Honestly, I'd expected it sooner. I let it ring 3 times before answering, keeping my voice professionally neutral. Hello? Bella. Matt's voice was tight, strained, barely containing some emotion I couldn't quite identify. Anger? Desperation? We need to talk. The moment you called me, you breached the no-contact clause in our agreement, I said calmly, like I was discussing the weather. That's a $1 million penalty, Matt. Wire transfer to my account up front before we discuss anything else. This is extortion, he exploded. You can't. This is a contract you signed, I interrupted, my voice still calm. A contract your lawyer drafted that you agreed to, that was legally notarized. You want to talk to me? Pay the fee. You'll have my account information in 5 minutes. I hung up before he could respond. 5 minutes later, exactly as promised, I emailed him my bank account details. For 2 days, nothing happened. I went about my life, working on the new project I'd been developing, and waited. Then, on the 3rd day, my phone chimed with a notification. $1 million had been deposited into my account. When Matt called again an hour later, I could hear the barely controlled rage in his voice, but also something else. Something that sounded a lot like fear. Fine, he ground out. You got your money. Now we need you to fix the system. We're having critical failures. Processing speeds have dropped by 40%. Error rates are climbing. Clients are complaining. Some are threatening to leave. We need you to come in and fix this. The $1 million you just paid was for breaching the no-contact clause, I said calmly. If you want technical support, if you want me to come in and assess your system, that's a separate service. That's another $1 million. The silence on the other end was deafening. Another million. Matt finally exploded. You can't be serious. We just paid you $1 million. You paid $1 million because you violated our contract by contacting me, I corrected. Technical support is a completely different service with its own fee, as specified in the agreement you signed. If you want me to come in and diagnose your system problems, the fee is $1 million. If you don't want to pay it, we can end this call right now, and you can try to solve your problems without me. I could hear muffled voices in the background, Haley saying something I couldn't make out, Matt responding in sharp, angry tones. Fine, Matt said finally, his voice tight with barely suppressed fury. Fine, we'll pay your ridiculous fee, but you better actually fix our problems. I'll come in and assess the situation, I said. I'll tell you what's wrong and what needs to be done. That's what you're paying for. That's not. Matt started, but I interrupted. Those are the terms, Matt. Take them or leave them. You have 24 hours to wire the payment. Once I receive confirmation, I'll schedule a time to come in. I'll be bringing my lawyer. Your lawyer? Matt's voice rose again. Why do you need a lawyer? Because this is a business transaction, and I want everything properly documented, I said simply. 24 hours, Matt. After that, the offer expires, and you'll need to figure this out on your own. I hung up. This time, the payment came faster. Within 6 hours, my phone chimed again. Another $1 million. $2 million total. And I hadn't even stepped foot in that building yet. I called Ricky immediately. They paid both fees, I told him, unable to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. $1 million for the no-contact breach, $1 million for technical support consultation. $2 million just to get you in the door, Ricky said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. They must be desperate. Their system is failing, I said. They're probably hemorrhaging clients. They don't have a choice. When do we go in? Tomorrow, 2 p.m. And Ricky, bring the implementation agreement, the $5 million one, because once I tell them what's actually wrong, they're going to need it. I'll be ready, he said. The next afternoon, I walked into the office building I hadn't entered in over a year. Ricky was with me, and I have to admit, his presence made me feel infinitely more confident. He was wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit that somehow made his former Marine bearing even more pronounced. 6 feet, 2 inches of controlled intensity, professional competence, and quiet authority. We rode the elevator up in silence. When the doors opened and we walked toward the conference room, I could see Matt and Haley through the glass walls. They looked terrible, exhausted, stressed, probably not sleeping well. But what caught my attention immediately was that Damien, Anna, and Clarence were also in the room. My former IT team, sitting at the far end of the conference table with laptops open in front of them, looking frustrated and defeated. Matt's eyes went wide when he saw Ricky walking beside me. I watched his face go through several expressions in quick succession: surprise, confusion, jealousy, and something that might have been inadequacy. "Who's this?" Matt asked as we entered the room, his voice sharp. "Your new boyfriend?" "This is Ricky Grant," I said smoothly, professionally. "My attorney." Haley had been staring at Ricky with poorly concealed appreciation. I heard her whisper to Matt, just loud enough for us to hear, "Oh my God, he looks like he should be in movies." Ricky's expression remained perfectly neutral and professional, but I saw the tiniest twitch at the corner of his mouth. We sat down at the conference table. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. I looked at Damien, Anna, and Clarence. They looked exhausted, like they'd been working around the clock trying to solve problems they couldn't fix. Damien met my eyes, and I saw something there. Relief, maybe, or recognition that I was here to help them, even if Matt and Haley didn't realize it yet. "So," I said, keeping my voice professional and neutral, "tell me what's happening with the system." Damien cleared his throat, glancing nervously at Matt before speaking. "We've been experiencing significant performance degradation over the past few months. Processing speeds have dropped by approximately 40%. Error rates have increased exponentially. We're getting timeout failures, data synchronization issues, and sporadic system crashes." "What have you tried?" I asked. "Everything we can think of. Anna said, frustration clear in her voice. We've optimized the servers, cleared cache files, rebuilt databases, checked for memory leaks, reviewed error logs. We've tried implementing patches for what we thought were the problem areas. But nothing's working, Clarence added. If anything, some of our attempted fixes made things worse. We're locked out of certain parts of the system architecture. We can't access the core modules where we think the real problems are originating. I nodded slowly, understanding exactly what they were describing. That's because the system needs to be updated. Major updates every 4 years. It's been just over a year since I left, which means the system is now overdue for its scheduled maintenance cycle by several months. The degradation you're experiencing isn't a bug, it's by design. The system requires regular comprehensive updates to maintain optimal performance. Matt leaned forward aggressively. Then fix it. That's what we paid you $1 million for. No, I said calmly. You paid me $1 million for consultation, to come in, assess the problem, and tell you what's wrong. I just did that. The system needs version 2.0, which includes the comprehensive updates and patches I was working on when you terminated my employment. So install it. Matt's voice rose. You're here. You have the files. Just do it. I shook my head. The update package I created isn't included in your consultation fee. It's a separate product, a separate service. The room went completely silent. Matt's face was turning red. What are you talking about? You're here to fix the problem. I'm here to tell you what the problem is, I corrected. You're experiencing system degradation because your software hasn't been updated in over a year. The fix is version 2.0, a comprehensive system update that will resolve your performance issues, patch security vulnerabilities, optimize processing speeds, and provide 4 years of stable operation before the next major update cycle is needed. Then give us the update, Haley practically shouted. Ricky spoke for the first time, his voice calm and authoritative. Miss Thompson created version 2.0 as a separate product. Installing it, implementing it across all your client systems, customizing it for specific client needs, and providing ongoing technical support is substantial work that requires its own contract and compensation. He opened his briefcase with deliberate precision and pulled out a document, placing it on the table. This is the implementation agreement. Miss Thompson will install version 2.0, deploy it across your entire client base, provide customization services, and include a 4-year technical support contract with guaranteed system updates. The total cost is $5 million. The room exploded. $5 million? Matt was half out of his chair. You can't be serious. Your company generates over $40 million in annual revenue, I said, my voice steady and cold. That revenue exists because of the software I built. The software you got for free when you forced me out. $5 million represents a fraction of what you've made from my work. This is extortion. Haley's voice cracked. This is business, I replied. You got the system for free and have made tens of millions of dollars from it. That system was mine, and you stole it without understanding how it actually works. Every software system requires updates and maintenance. That's not unique to what I built. That's industry standard. The update was never included in the consultation fee because they're completely separate services. Matt turned to Damien desperately. You can't figure this out. You're supposed to be IT professionals. Damien's expression was carefully neutral, but I saw his eyes flick to mine before he responded. Sir, we've done everything within our capability, but we don't have access to the core system architecture. It's encrypted. We can maintain surface operations, troubleshoot known issues, and handle client support, but we can't modify the back-end code or implement the kind of comprehensive updates the system needs. Why not? Matt demanded. Because only Bella has the encryption keys, Damien said simply. She built the system, she secured it, and without those keys, we're locked out of the areas that need updating. I watched Matt's face go through a rapid series of emotions: disbelief, rage, comprehension, and finally, defeated acceptance. Anna spoke up, her voice quiet but clear. The system architecture is actually brilliant. The way it's designed, the way the security layers work, the way the core code integrates with the user interface. Bella built something incredibly sophisticated, but it was built to require her involvement for major updates. We literally cannot do what needs to be done without her. Clarence nodded. We've spent months trying to find a workaround. There isn't one. Not without completely rebuilding the entire system from scratch, which would take years and cost exponentially more than whatever Bella's charging. I saw the ghost of smiles on their faces. Small, quickly hidden, but there. They understood. They'd figured it out. And they weren't unhappy about it. Matt slumped back in his chair, looking defeated. Haley's face had gone pale. You planned this, Matt said, his voice hollow. From the beginning, you built this trap. I built protection, I corrected. When my instincts told me something was wrong, you're the ones who activated the trap by betraying me and throwing me away. You thought you were so clever, forcing me out and keeping the company. But you never bothered to understand what you were really taking. Ricky tapped the document on the table. You have two options. You can pay Miss Thompson $5 million for the implementation contract, which includes version 2.0, full deployment, customization services, and 4 years of technical support. Or you can attempt to rebuild your entire software system from scratch, which will take years, cost significantly more, and result in massive client loss during the transition. Can we have time to discuss this? Haley asked, her voice small. You have 15 minutes, Ricky said graciously. We'll wait in the lobby. As Ricky and I stood to leave, I paused and looked at Damien, Aina, and Clarence. You three are excellent at what you do. This situation isn't your fault. You've been working with incomplete tools and impossible constraints. Damien met my eyes and nodded once. Thank you, Bella, for everything. The unspoken understanding passed between us. They knew. They knew I'd built something that would eventually need me. They knew Matt and Haley had made a catastrophic mistake. And they weren't going to help Matt and Haley understand just how thoroughly they'd lost. Ricky and I left the conference room. As we walked toward the elevator, I glanced back through the glass walls and saw Damien, Anna, and Clarence exchanging looks. Small smiles, subtle nods, the satisfied expressions of people watching karma unfold in real time. And Matt and Haley, sitting at that table, finally understanding that they'd never really owned the company at all. They'd just been renting it from me. And the rent had just come due. We took the elevator down to the lobby. Ricky got us both coffee from the machine. Terrible coffee, the kind you only drink when you need something to do with your hands. We sat in uncomfortable chairs without talking much. I was trying to keep my emotions under control, trying not to think too much about what it meant to be back in this building, facing these people. After exactly 15 minutes, Ricky's phone buzzed. They're ready, he said. We went back up. Matt and Haley looked like they'd been arguing. Haley's eyes were slightly red. Matt's jaw was clenched tight enough to crack teeth. We'll accept, Matt said as soon as we sat down, the words clearly painful. The $5 million implementation contract. A wise decision, Ricky said, pulling out a pen. Given your current situation, you really had no other viable option. They signed. Right there, barely reading the documents, just wanting it over with. The money was wired that same day. $5 million for the implementation contract. Combined with the $2 million they'd already paid, $1 million for breaching the no-contact clause, $1 million for the consultation. That was $7 million total flowing into my accounts. As we gathered the signed documents and prepared to leave, I spoke one final time. I'll begin the implementation process tomorrow morning. The full rollout will take 48 to 72 hours across all your client systems. Your IT team will need to coordinate with me directly. I'll send over the detailed schedule and contact protocols this evening. Damien should be the primary liaison since he understands your infrastructure best. Matt didn't respond. He just sat there staring at the table, looking utterly defeated. Haley was staring at nothing in particular, and for just a brief moment, I thought I saw something that might have been regret flicker across her face. But it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Ricky and I left that conference room and walked to the elevator. As the elevator doors closed and we began descending, Ricky finally let himself smile. Really smile, not just the professional expression he'd maintained upstairs. You planned this from the very beginning, he said. You knew this exact scenario would happen. I knew the system would eventually need updates they couldn't provide, I said. I knew they'd underestimate the technical complexity because they never bothered to actually understand what I'd built. I knew their arrogance would make them think their IT team could handle anything. I just waited for the inevitable. "And while you were waiting," he asked, "I was building something better?" I said simply. Ricky stared at me for a long moment. "You're remarkable, you know that?" Something warm flickered in his eyes, and I felt my cheeks flush slightly. The elevator reached the ground floor and the doors opened. We walked across the lobby toward the parking garage, stepping out into the late afternoon sunlight. "Can I buy you a coffee?" Ricky asked as we reached the sidewalk. "I think you've earned it after that performance." I glanced at my watch. It was nearly 5 in the evening. "Coffee?" I said, looking up at him with the first genuine smile I'd felt in hours. "It's almost 5 o'clock, Ricky. How about dinner instead?" Something warm flickered in his eyes. "Dinner it is." I'm going to jump ahead now, because the middle years were mostly hard work, long hours, and steady building. Not boring exactly, but not particularly dramatic either. Just the daily grind of growing a business from the ground up. Ricky and I got married 5 years after that first dinner. Turns out, the man who'd helped me stand up to my betrayers was also the man I wanted to stand beside for the rest of my life. We have a 4-year-old daughter named Sophie who somehow inherited both her father's confidence and my stubborn determination. And my company? The business I started with savings from the $7 million Matt and Haley had been forced to pay me? It's worth over $200 million now. I started small and strategic, offering mid-sized companies software that actually solved their problems instead of creating new ones. Better AI, better error detection, better automation, better integration. Word spread quickly. Success breeds success. Meanwhile, Matt and Haley watched their revenue collapse. $40 million a year became 30, then 20, then 15, then 10, then 8. They cut costs desperately, smaller offices, salary cuts, layoffs. One of those layoffs included Damien, Anna, and Clarence. About 9 years into my journey, they were let go. What Matt and Haley didn't know was that all 3 had applied to my company without realizing it was mine. When they walked into their interviews and saw me sitting there, their faces went through shock, recognition, and then hope. I knew their work. I knew their capabilities. I offered them positions on the spot. Better salaries, better benefits, actual job security. They thrived with me. Damien led implementation teams. Anna headed quality assurance. Clarence trained new developers. Matt and Haley never knew where they'd gone. As Matt and Haley's major client contracts came up for renewal over the years, those clients reached out to me. Many remembered me from when I'd originally set up their systems. They remembered the programmer who'd stayed late to solve their problems, who'd listened to their needs, who'd built solutions that actually worked. When I showed them what my new software could do, the decision was easy. One by one, they switched. It was near the end of year 13, 10 years since I'd left their company. Matt was scrolling through LinkedIn when he saw a post from one of their former major clients announcing a partnership with my company. He clicked through to my website. There I was, in a professional headshot, smiling confidently at the camera. CEO and founder, Bella Porter. According to my contact, Matt had called Haley over to his computer, barely able to form words. They'd both stared at the screen in growing horror. The woman they'd betrayed. The woman they'd forced out with fake accusations. The woman they'd thought they'd destroyed. I'd built the company that was systematically destroying them. They clicked through frantically. Client testimonials, press releases, industry awards, articles calling me an innovative leader in enterprise software, and then they saw the client list. Page after page. Their former clients, names they recognized, revenue streams that had once been theirs, one after another after another. The rage was spectacular. They called a lawyer immediately, desperate for revenge. 2 days later, Matt and Haley sat in the expensive office of David Simon, a corporate attorney with a strong reputation for business disputes. They laid out their case passionately. Corporate sabotage, client poaching, theft of trade secrets. Whatever would stick, whatever would stop the bleeding. David listened patiently. He reviewed the contracts. He examined my company's public information. He researched the industry. The consultation took nearly 2 hours. Finally, he closed his folder and delivered the news they desperately didn't want to hear. You have no case. What do you mean, no case? Matt exploded. She built a competing company. She systematically stole our clients. Did Miss Thompson sign a non-compete agreement? David asked calmly. Well, no, but without an explicit non-compete clause, Miss Thompson was legally free to start any business she wanted, including direct competition. That's fundamental business law. She used insider knowledge, Matt said. General industry knowledge and professional relationships aren't trade secrets. Unless you can prove she stole specific proprietary information, source code, confidential contracts, detailed strategic plans, you have no basis for a claim. But she's been taking our clients, Haley said. If clients chose to switch providers when their contracts expired because they preferred her product or service, that's legal market competition. Clients are free to choose any provider they want once their contractual obligations to you end. David paused. Let me explain something crucial. If you sued and this went to court, you'd be subject to discovery. Her legal team could examine all your internal communications, including the circumstances under which she left. He tapped the severance agreement. This contract references accusations of corporate espionage that were used to pressure her into leaving. In discovery, you'd have to produce evidence. I don't see any evidence attached. It seems that this is only written to force her to leave the company immediately, and I see that you paid her $100,000. Produce evidences, and if you can't, and I suspect you can't because those accusations were fabricated, you'd be admitting to wrongful termination, defamation, possibly fraud. She could countersuit, and she would almost certainly win. And I don't understand, why would you pay her $100,000 if you accuse her of corporate espionage? The room went silent. David opened the severance agreement again. This separation agreement is one of the worst I've seen for protecting a company's interests. No non-compete clause, no non-solicitation clause, no intellectual property restrictions beyond her existing work. Your lawyer made critical errors that cost you your business. Matt's face went pale. Our lawyer? Your lawyer failed you, David interrupted. Miss Thompson was legally free to do everything she's done. Start a competing company, build better software, approach your clients, hire your former employees after you laid them off. All perfectly legal because your separation agreement didn't restrict any of it. David stood, signaling the consultation was over. My professional advice? Accept that you lost this competitive battle. Suing would be expensive. You'd lose, and it would generate negative publicity. That's not a story that attracts the few clients you have left. Matt and Haley sat in their car outside David Grant's office after that devastating consultation, the weight of their defeat settling over them. For several long minutes, neither spoke. Matt gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. Haley stared out the window, seeing nothing. Finally, Haley spoke, her voice quiet and hollow. Imagine if we hadn't kicked her out. Matt's hands tightened on the wheel. Don't. But Haley continued. I'm serious. Just imagine. Imagine if we'd kept her as a real partner, made her an equal, paid her fairly, actually valued what she built. Haley, those clients we lost? Her voice started to crack. They didn't leave because her software was slightly better. They left because they wanted to work with her. They trusted her. They remembered how she solved their problems. She turned to look at him, tears forming. If she'd stayed, if we hadn't betrayed her, we'd probably still have all of them. We'd have a $50 million company. She'd be developing for us instead of against us. We'd all be wealthy, successful, happy. Stop it! Matt slammed his hand against the steering wheel. The horn gave a brief beep that echoed. Silence filled the car. When Haley spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. We had everything, Matt. A brilliant partner who built something revolutionary, a product that worked, unlimited potential. And we threw it away because we got greedy, because we wanted everything for ourselves. She paused. And our lawyer was so incompetent, he didn't even protect us. He gave her complete freedom to destroy us, and we were so eager to get rid of her, we didn't even notice. It's done, Matt said flatly. It's over. Isn't it? Haley's voice cracked completely. Tears slid down her face, because I think about it every day. Every time we lose another client, every time we lay off more people, I think about what we did, what we destroyed. who we became. She wiped her eyes. We could have all been successful together. Instead, she's worth hundreds of millions. She's happily married. She has a family. She has a respected company. And we're selling our house just to stay afloat. We've laid off everyone loyal to us. Our relationship is hollow. And for what? Matt started the car without responding, his jaw clenched tight. As they pulled out, Haley looked out the window and whispered, "We destroyed ourselves. Not her. Us. We're not the victims. We never were. We're just people who were too stupid and too greedy to see what we had until it was gone." Matt didn't respond. He didn't argue. He didn't defend their choices, because deep down he knew she was absolutely right. Years after I'd walked out of that hotel room and discovered their betrayal, they'd lost everything that mattered. Matt worked middle management at a marketing firm, making a fraction of what he'd made as CEO. Haley bounced between sales jobs, never finding her footing again. Their relationship was cold and hollow. They stayed together, not out of love, but out of inertia, out of shared burden, out of the fact that leaving would mean admitting everything had been for nothing. Meanwhile, I was living in a beautiful home with a husband who loved and respected me, raising a daughter who filled my days with joy. I ran a company worth over $200 million. I'd been featured in major publications, won industry awards, built something meaningful. I'd not only survived their betrayal, I'd turned it into the foundation for something far greater. And the truth that Matt and Haley finally understood far too late was that I hadn't destroyed them at all. They'd destroyed themselves through their own greed, their own arrogance, their own inability to see that the person they were betraying was holding their success together. And their lawyer's incompetence gave me the freedom to compete without restriction. I'd just been better than they thought, smarter than they assumed, more strategic than they'd given me credit for. Sometimes, karma doesn't need any help. Sometimes people build their own prisons out of their worst choices and then have to live in them forever. And sometimes, the person you betray becomes the architect of your downfall, not through revenge, but simply by being better than you ever imagined possible. That's the real end of this story. Not dramatic, not explosive. Just the quiet, inevitable consequences of underestimating someone who was always more capable than you thought and of failing to protect yourself when you had the chance. Matt and Haley learned too late that you can't build an empire on someone else's talent and expect it to stand after you push that person away. And I learned that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success. It's building something better. It's proving that they didn't break you, they just freed you to become everything you were always meant to be.
If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Don't forget to follow for more content just like this. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.